Hi everyone and welcome to Inspiring Leadership. I'm your host Dom Xiao and today's episode is one that I know will touch hearts and inspire minds. I'm joined by someone I've known for over a decade, Dale Dawson. She's an Australian senior executive, a health and well-being champion, leadership coach and grief educator. I first met Dale back when I was delivering leadership and project management training at what was then known as the Department of Human Services. Even then, she stood out, thoughtful, values-driven, and genuinely passionate about helping others flourish. Since then, she's built a remarkable career serving the public and championing well-being and culture. But Dale's story also carries a deeply personal side. She lost her beloved husband to brain cancer 5 years ago. Through that experience, she has found new purpose in helping others heal through grief. In this conversation, we'll explore 3 themes close to her heart. How to flourish in the public sector, finding joy and purpose in service. Leadership and culture, what it takes to keep people inspired. And navigating grief and resilience. The lessons, strength, and light that can emerge from loss. Dale, it's such a privilege to have you join us today.
Thank you
so much for being open to sharing your powerful story.
Thank you very much. It is an absolute honor and joy to be here joining you today. I love your podcast. I love how you bring the humanity into leadership, which I think is so important. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dale. Dale, 25 years in the Australian public sector.
Yeah.
You can do a much better job at telling the audience here how it all started, maybe your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say that I'm the accidental public servant because I applied for a job in the year 2000, so 25 years ago, and I honestly thought that I was applying for a job. I had 2 young boys at that time. They were 10 and 12. And I had recently become single and I needed to support them. So I saw a job in the newspaper. That's how long ago it was that the ad was in the newspaper.
Right.
And I thought, I'll apply. And honestly, I thought I'd be there for 2 years. I thought that would be the extent of it. I'd get some experience on my resume and then I'd go out into the big wide world and do whatever I was going to do. I had always wanted to be a teacher.
Really?
Growing up. If anyone asked me what I wanted to do or be when I grew up, it was to be a teacher. And what I soon discovered, though, was there were so many opportunities in the public service. And it felt very aligned with my values of wanting to make a difference in the world. And it's absolutely given me the opportunity to do that. So I started in a call centre in the public service. And then after a year or so, I thought, maybe there's some other roles I might like to try out. So again, relating back to the teaching, the next role I stepped into was a facilitation trainer role. And then from there, I would say I never really had a career plan. Like there was no clear, this is where I'll be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think what I did was, or looking back, I know what I did was I said yes when opportunities presented themselves. And often with a huge amount of discomfort and not necessarily feeling ready for the next thing. But I just followed the breadcrumbs.
Amazing.
Yeah. And 25 years later, I look back now and think how incredibly fortunate I have been. And I feel like I started for the job and I stayed for the people.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
Thank you so much, Dale. It's the Dale that we fell in love with, I think about a decade ago when we first met.
Yes.
And it's why I had to bring you here because so many of our clients at eqstrategist wonderful people that work across the public sector, whether it's local government, state government, federal government. It's been such a privilege.
Yeah.
We've met some amazing people and
Yeah.
some exceptional leaders, and you've always been one of them.
Thank you.
And I think just that little intro that you shared, we speak about flourishing through the public sector, and you're clearly flourishing. What's your latest role? Tell us a little bit about
I
that.
just started a new role. So if we'd met 3 weeks ago, I was a national manager, and now I'm the chief of staff of a Commonwealth, a large Commonwealth agency.
Oh my goodness. Well done.
Yeah, so
That is
look,
awesome.
it wasn't on the bingo card.
Okay.
It's it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be in that role. I feel incredibly fortunate, and I know how important you just mentioned. You know a lot of people across the public sector, and I've been incredibly fortunate to work for and alongside some really incredible people. And I think sometimes public sector employees, they get a bit of a hard time at times. What I have seen through my 25 years is thousands and thousands of people who just genuinely care and want to make a difference and want to contribute.
Absolutely. And that's been my personal experience
Yeah.
as well, because I think in the public sector, unlike the private sector,
Yeah.
it is so obvious why you're there and how you're
Yeah.
making the difference.
Yeah.
And we speak about being a leader is about legacy and making a difference, and everything that you shared in your opening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on there. And, I've come to a point in my career, I'm 25 years in. So I feel like the roles that I'm choosing and, the things that I'm doing, I have started to turn my mind to what is the impact that I want to make? What is the legacy I want to leave from my time in the public service?
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. When you speak, we come across leaders, and one of the patterns that we observe among exceptional leaders is what drives them very often is that higher human need of self-actualization, growing purposefully to make a difference. And just from your example, right, openness, you've always said yes to opportunities that pop up, but never losing sight of the desire to serve. Even though you joined in and you're applying for a job,
Yeah.
you've sustained, it sounds like you've sustained a very long and flourishing career to this day, continuing to flourish
Yeah.
just through an amazing mindset.
Yeah. I really love the way you frame that, because I think that's right. It starts as a job, it becomes a career, and then in some ways it becomes a calling because you can see the difference that we collectively given the opportunity to make to people. And I've always been very, very much driven by the difference I can make to people. And I think I mentioned earlier that I haven't always felt ready for the roles that I've stepped into. One thing I've always tried to be clear about was, does it feel aligned? So does it feel like an aligned step for me, that I'm not choosing to move into a role just because it's that particular role or it's at that particular level? It's always needed to feel, I've needed to feel that internal sense of alignment. Is this helping me to make the difference I want to make in the world? And is this helping me to be and to become the person and the role model that I hope to be for other people?
Amazing. Thank you, Dale.
Pleasure.
Dale, many people will look at you today, polished, high EQ communicator, leader. You've always had those attributes. And yet, people who may not have known about your wonderful backstory would have assumed, boy, clearly, she's there because she has all these amazing attributes. Probably think that you have all sorts of, PhDs behind your name and all that kind of stuff. And yet, what advice would you give someone who's probably struggling a little bit in the public sector? Invariably, sometimes we deal with bureaucracy and certain challenges, sometimes even less than ideal workplace cultures, even toxic, for instance. What advice would you give to someone on how to sustain and continue to flourish in the public sector?
Yeah, such a good question. And people may look at me that way. Before I get to answer your question, and I will get to it quickly, I don't have any PhDs, and I was very, very young. I was a teenage mother, so I didn't go off to university. And for a lot of my career, I allowed that sense of internal judgment and shame to really impact me in a way where I had a lot of self-doubt, even though on the outside I may have been looking like I was building a career. There was still a lot of self-doubt I think I had at that time, and that impacted on my self-worth. And the way I would deal with that was I would outsource my, to get validation. I would outsource to feel good and to feel worthy, and I would overwork and please. It was always about pleasing other people. And so I think what I would offer to someone who may be in a situation where they're feeling like they're not feeling amazing is that you need to cultivate that belief from within. Like find ways, because everybody has incredible qualities and attributes and characteristics. I think that, sometimes we have to find them. We have to excavate for them, I think, at times. I think everybody, and that's not to dismiss that they're coming from different places. There are unearned privileges that I have, being the person I am, growing up in the environment that I grew up in, and I don't take any of that for granted. So I do acknowledge that. And what I would say is that just know that you are innately enough. There isn't any need for you to go out and prove yourself to other people. I think there is an element of self-leadership within there. It's being willing to stop and take a look at, where are you at? Are you making decisions that are in alignment with what matters to you and who you want to be in the world? Or are you making choices because you think somebody else is telling you that's what you need to do or that's who you need to be? Wow. So I think, there's so many things I could talk all day about this topic. I think one of the really key aspects is know yourself. Get to know yourself, get to know what matters to you, what lights you up.
Wow.
Because I think when people are lit up, they are more energized. And I think when that's when really incredible things happened.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that you share, not just the importance of self-worth and building that belief from within, but that wonderful tip. Great question, right? What lights you up?
Yes.
And be able to identify with it, and in times of pressure, rather than succumbing to maybe just being a pleaser.
Exactly.
Staying true to that, staying aligned with what lights you up, and that's not easy.
No.
Very often.
No, I think that's the thing. It's all well and good for me to sit here and share these tips, and it's an entirely different thing to be living it in the real world. Yeah. And it's unlikely that we find ourselves in careers. Maybe it is more likely than we think. Who knows? But there might be things or moments in your career, your life, where you aren't lit up by what you're needing to do, what your responsibilities are. And what I would say to that is find 5 minutes in your day, if you can, to do something that lights you up. Sometimes that can be enough to just change a mindset or, change how you're feeling in the moment.
Such a practical tip and strategy. Excellent.
Yeah. Sometimes easier said than done.
I bet.
Yeah.
Dale, through your long and distinguished career in the public sector, you would have come across, like me, good managers and exceptional leaders. Yeah. What in your mind makes one, from your experience, an exceptional leader that others would willingly follow, right? In the public sector especially.
Yeah. Look, I have been really fortunate to have some exceptional leaders, And I think there's one that really springs to mind for me. And what I really loved about this leader is that they were incredibly effective as a leader and as a manager. And they created the vision, they painted the picture. So we knew what our purpose was. And what I believe made them an exceptional leader in complement to those things was their kindness, their humanity, their willingness to create an environment. And I'll say that again.
Okay.
Their willingness to create an environment where people felt they belonged. They really created that culture of kindness, connection, belonging. And that is something that I have carried forward with me. And they are probably three of the most important values that I have is kindness, connection, and belonging.
Wow.
And so I think there's all the practical things that make an exceptional leader an exceptional leader. And I think then there are the qualities that somebody has, that the care they have for other people,
Right.
that they are connected to something bigger than themselves.
Right. Wonderful. I love the word kindness.
Yes.
Not that it was unexpected coming from you, Dale. And yet in the public sector, when we speak about being effective is, as you mentioned, building that environment where people can flourish and, importantly, delivering results, outcomes.
Yes, absolutely.
And, we hear about the public sector, and occasionally people are talking about missed deadlines and costs that overrun and seemingly lack of ownership and accountability. And over the last two years at eqstrategist, so often we're getting organizations in the public sector saying, hey, my managers aren't really doing the job about managing performance.
Yes.
And very often kindness can be associated as soft, compassionate, which is all true. And yet, how do you, can you maybe share your perspective of kindness and at the same time making sure that we are being effective in terms of delivering to our promises? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a really important point to make, we have a responsibility in the public service to deliver and to be responsible for what we're delivering. And I think there was a lot of my career where I was told that I was too nice. And I think there's a distinction in that, though. There is being nice and there is being kind. And I think being kind is what goes hand in hand with managing performance effectively, because the kindness is to manage the performance effectively. It's not, in my opinion, you're not being kind to somebody if they're underperforming, if they're not suited to a particular role, and you aren't choosing to do anything about that.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean, managing performance doesn't mean that we have to come in hard. And it reminds me of something I've tried to carry through my career, is that when I've had to have tough conversations or make tough decisions, because it's not easy every day, it's not sunshine and rainbows all of the time. Sometimes we really have to make hard decisions that impact on us as well. And one thing I've always attempted to do and hopefully have executed is that you leave people's dignity intact. There is a way to have a tough conversation with someone where you aren't impacting on who they believe they are as a person, because it's a circumstance. It doesn't define who they are as a human being.
Yes. And I think that thing, I love those elements of dignity.
Yeah.
Always being kind and yet firm about never compromising on one's, we started this conversation speaking about self-worth and how that's important, and always reminding people of what they're capable of and holding them to the highest potential is, I think, what you're associating with kindness. Don't let them settle for something that you feel you can see in their potential and holding them to account for that.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes a great leader as well, is that sometimes we need to hold the belief for somebody else before they can see it for themselves. And I think that's an element of exceptional leadership, is identifying talent, identifying, exceptional people before they maybe even see it within themselves. And I know that has happened many times in my career. There have been leaders that I have had that saw something in me. They believed in me. They supported me. They helped create an environment where I could flourish even when I couldn't see it for myself. And I think if I hadn't had leaders like that, I don't know if I'd be sitting here with you today. I don't know where I would be. So I think that is such an incredibly important aspect of leadership.
Dale, amazing. And I know that you recently had to be reminded of the 5th anniversary of your wonderful Steve's passing.
Yeah. That was a huge moment. A little bit of backstory for the listeners. In 2011, I experienced the sudden loss of my beautiful mum. And then 2 years later, my incredible, amazing, wonderful 35-year-old or 34 and 364 days old husband had a seizure playing soccer. It was the day before his birthday. And we then subsequently found out on his birthday that he had a brain tumor. And so Steve lived with that brain tumor, or a number of brain tumors, for almost 7 years. And then in October 2020, the 10th 20, he passed away from a grade 4 glioblastoma. And in all honesty, and this relates to my career as well, throughout my life and my career, I'd always really prided myself on my resilience, my ability to carry challenging experiences in my life. And I was an exceptional compartmentalizer. And I think that probably served me well throughout various experiences in my life and career. And then Steve died. And in all honesty, I thought all of those qualities that had carried me through until that point — I was 46 at the time that Steve passed, and I thought they were all gone. I thought, that's it. They served me well up until this point in my life, and now I don't have any of those qualities anymore. And I truly did not think that I would be able to function in the world again. I thought all I could feel at that time was darkness. And people talk about grief coming in waves. And I found in my very early grief, for a lot longer though than I actually thought it would last, it was more like a tsunami. There was no space to breathe. There was no light. Wow. And I didn't think I would ever return to work again after that. I'd held all of this for so many years, and then it truly felt like something in me broke. And there were many, many, many months where I would wake up every day feeling like, oh my goodness, I woke up again. And I really, at that point in my life, I didn't want to be alive because it was too much pain. And I couldn't reconcile how anybody could possibly live in a world carrying that much pain. Eventually, though, as happens, for me, it was just breathe and then get through the next 5 minutes, and then it might be an hour, and then it was a day, and eventually I found myself back at a place where I started to feel like maybe I can go back to work, or, maybe I can live again. And I was doing things like, from the outside, it probably looked like I was, living, doing the things that look like living. On the inside, though, I was, really feeling quite broken for a long time. I did make it back to work, and I'm incredibly grateful that I did, because in some ways I think that was some of the normality that I perhaps needed at that time. There isn't, though, a moment where Steve isn't in my mind, like isn't present for me. And I think over time, what I have been able to learn to do, the grief didn't diminish or hasn't diminished. I think what's happened is I've learned to grow around that grief. I've learned to carry the sadness and the pain in a different way. And from a leadership perspective, it had a huge impact on me and the way I returned to work, the way I choose to lead. I would like to think I've always been a kind and empathetic person. I think, though, it has deepened my sense of empathy for what people carry and the experiences they have in their lives. I think it has also, it was a big shift for me in how I live my life, in what matters to me, in what feels aligned to me. And I feel in some ways, in a lot of ways, a responsibility to live a good life. Steve might not be here for it. My mum might not be here for it. My dad then passed away in 2022, so not too long after Steve. I think that for a long time I was living for them, and now I feel like 5 years in, I'm living for all of us. And the 5-year anniversary of Steve's passing, I can say, was the first time I could honestly say, I'm okay.
Wow.
I'll be okay. And I'll be better than okay. That I'm creating a life that I know they would be proud of, and a life that I'm proud of.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm still becoming. I'm always becoming, always learning, always growing. But from a leadership perspective, it's been an incredible teacher.
Beautiful. Thank you for epitomizing the light that can appear in the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It sounds like there was a period of time when you were treading water and barely wondering if you could stay afloat. And yet, clearly from the outside looking in today, you're someone with that authentic energy where you're flourishing, certainly contributing in as amazing place as ever.
Thanks.
For someone who may be going through that journey, I know it's taken you 5 years, and all throughout it, you were growing and learning and about yourself and clearly about a process as well. I know that you're very passionate about sharing and empowering others with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For someone who may be going through that maybe at the start or early on in that journey, what advice might you give them? Yeah, about the lessons you took away from that whole episode. Yeah.
I think what I would say is that it's hard. It is hard, and it's so important to feel what you're feeling, to allow yourself to not feel like you need to hide your feelings or censor your feelings. I know what was really important for me was connection. I knew early on that, one of the first things I did was educated myself. I did a grief educator education program with David Kessler.
Wow.
And that was part of me needing to understand, was what I was experiencing normal, whatever normal is, but had other people experienced that? And I looked for other people who had survived what I was experiencing because it truly felt unsurvivable. And so I think in a practical sense, I would say breathe, and it sounds really simple. And even hearing myself say it out loud, I feel like, well, does that sound kind of silly? Of course we need to breathe. But I mean, really breathe and work out what it is that sustains you. For me, it was connection. So I joined a couple of widow groups to be around people who were experiencing something similar. It was journaling. I journaled multiple times a day because I am someone who can have a tendency to get up in their head, and that allowed me to get out of my head and onto paper. What it also did was it allowed me to go back and observe, was I growing through this? Was I was about to say, was I any better? And I don't mean better as a human, but, was I getting better at carrying the grief?
Right.
So I think there are really, and particularly if you are someone who's in very early grief, be kind to yourself. Give yourself the time and space that you need to be able to integrate what it is that you're experiencing. Get out in the sunshine. It's really, they can be quite simple things. Light a candle, create a ritual for yourself if that's something that works for you.
Wow.
And if you're a leader, and I don't mean a leader necessarily in role. I mean, I think I have this feeling, or I have this thought that we are all leaders in some way. If you are working, if you're needing to go out into the world every day, I think find, someone or the people that you can be safe with to share how you're feeling.
Wow.
Because I think grief is really a misunderstood experience, and we all are going to go through it in some way, and yet it's not something that gets spoken about a great deal. So for something that is, a universal experience as a human, and it might not be your husband, it could be another human in your life, or it could be a pet. I have a beautiful dog, Millie. She is 9, so Millie came into our lives when Steve was still living, and I know that I will grieve Millie probably in a similar way to the way I grieve Steve. And I think that's so important as well, because sometimes in our desire, we want people to feel good. We want people to be happy. And so sometimes it's really hard as the person supporting somebody in grief as well. And I know your question was about what might someone do who's experiencing the grief. I think it's equally important to think about, are you someone supporting another person in grief?
Right.
Because we do. We want to fix, and we can't. It's an unfixable situation, which is incredibly complex and challenging for people. So I would say witness. Just be willing to witness what somebody is experiencing without the need to fix it, because we can't fix it. So listen and be a safe space. And that's what I would say. I've probably talked enough about that.
Not at all.
No?
Give them the gift of presence. Thank you so much. So many gems there. Grief is the sort of that you've been through, loss, unimaginable, and recently lost mother-in-law during COVID. That was difficult, and having to put down our first Labradoodle. Put her down. That was a journey I wasn't quite prepared for. And can you imagine having to put down your child, right? It's like, man, that was tough.
Yeah.
And yet everyone goes through a sense of loss in one way or another. Every change that we go through is a loss of an old state.
Yeah.
Right? And the emotions are often similar, maybe not at different levels of depth, clearly. But I think what I love most is that you reminding us to appreciate that if you're experiencing pain, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're normal.
It will be, you know, I think there is an incredible resilience within all of us.
Yes.
And maybe resilience isn't the right word, I'm not sure, but that ability to rebuild. And I think you are so right about it might be the loss of a person or a pet. It could also be a divorce, or it could be the loss of a job or a career, or like this. You're right. There are so many different losses that carry grief within them. And it's not always just the losses of people and animals and that impact on us. I think there are so many different losses. It's certainly an area I am very, very interested in, and I hope in the future that I dive into a little bit more. I would, how amazing would it be if we had workplaces that were grief literate so that when these losses happen in people's lives, we are better equipped as organizations, as, we have a culture where we know how to best step in and support people. And what an incredible environment that would be for the people experiencing the loss.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, with episodes like this, it's invariable that we go through these moments of self-doubt. What's wrong with me?
Yep.
When am I going to be able to shake this off?
Yeah.
Will I ever come out to the other side? And I think that questioning, that ruminating is very often what makes us fight the pain. And what you're counseling us on is, don't fight the pain. Feel the pain.
Feel the pain. 100%.
Feel the pain, right? And that's the best way to not over marinate, perhaps, in it. And this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And yet you're giving very practical tools. Empower yourself.
Yes.
Awareness is key. And when you're informed and you're empowered, it gets even better. Journal. Be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Right? And connect.
Yeah, that was so important for me in my own grief journey.
Yes.
Was to connect with other people.
Yes.
Because that gave me the moment because I questioned all of those things. Am I okay? Is there something wrong with me? I'm clearly not doing this well. And, all of those things were going around in my mind. And it gave me a sense of hope. And you know what? I remembered from when my mum passed away in 2011. I got through that because I had really incredible family and Steve and friends. And because I was able to maintain in my darkest moments, even if it was just a slither of hope that I would move forward, that I could get through this. So I think maintaining and it's a sense of hope, a sense of optimism. It's not toxic positivity. I think that's something we need to be really careful of in these situations as well, is that we don't slip into that mindset either, that we just have to be positive. Like if we just think good thoughts, I think it's important to think good thoughts, but there's balance in all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you also shared, one little snippet there. And I've observed your journey. I've benefited so much from it because you're not just journaling. What I love is that you literally share your journal with the world.
Yeah.
And that takes a whole lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And yet everyone who reads it, me included, you can't help but feel and as well as be inspired. Someone who has so much vulnerability and yet uses it as an opportunity to not just journal and do that as a self-care means to get away from the head to the heart, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And yet you're using it as an opportunity to remind everybody, hey, you're not alone.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like that's a responsibility that I have. And thankfully it's something I love. I feel like that is part of who I am now, is to be a good role model of what is possible, what possibility looks like, that you can experience incredibly dark moments that you think you will not survive. And little bit by little bit by little bit, doesn't happen overnight, just little bit by little bit, you can learn to rebuild and to live, really live. So yeah, being a role model of possibility.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Priceless.
think that's incredibly important.
Priceless. So difficult to do, and yet it takes a lot of courage, a lot of fortitude, especially at a time when you're grieving, your energy tends to not naturally go inward to resolve this. And yet, through your modeling, you're finding meaning and purpose. I've seen you go out there and help raise funds for cure for brain cancer.
Yeah.
You going out there and now sharing your story and giving. Sometimes when you feel least like it, right?
Yeah.
It's so tempting to get into your shell. Another very powerful strategy can be to go out there and connect and to give, ironically, give of yourself.
Yeah.
And that also helps in the healing process, is what I'm learning from your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That sense of purpose, I think, find what that purpose is. And really, our purpose in life is to be authentically who we are. That's my belief, is to be us, to be authentic. And authenticity as a leader, I think, is a superpower.
Amazing. Authenticity. You're an amazing model for that.
Thank you.
I think just a great way to perhaps wrap up this conversation, knowing that you and I could chat about this all day long. And yet, I know that the audience would love to be able to reach out to you. Was that something that you'd value?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I have an Instagram.
Oh, you do?
I do have Instagram.
Great.
It's my personal Instagram at the moment, but if you do want to look for me, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Maybe that's
Wonderful.
The easiest place for people to find me. Dale Dawson.
Great.
Yep, just plain Dale Dawson on LinkedIn, and on Instagram at the moment, I am Dale Jean _. Couldn't quite get Dale Dawson on Instagram, but probably LinkedIn is the easiest place for people to connect with me.
Fantastic. We'll be sure to have this all in the show notes.
Yes,
so that our wonderful audience can tap into you, and knowing that you will want to use every opportunity to be able to support and create even greater meaning through this wonderful journey that you've had.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And but thank you so much, Dale, for your grace. This has been a session that is so uplifting for me, and I know that will uplift our wonderful audience as well. We've covered so many topics: how to sustain a great career in the public sector, what leadership looks like, and importantly,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely wonderful. Any final words for our audience in terms of what advice on navigating and flourishing that you'd like to leave with them?
Yeah, look, I just think self-belief, self-leadership, self-knowing, knowing yourself is incredibly important. And, you can't go wrong when you're being yourself.
Beautiful.
So authenticity all the way.
Awesomeness. And you just being you and flourishing. Can't wait to continue on this journey with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much. You rock.
So do you.
Fantastic.